Hello guys, and welcome back to Strategic Command World War II World at War with our Allied playthrough. In the last episode, we took care of our turn dealing with offensives in Africa, which went very well. We took Tobruk, I believe, 2 months before the historical taking of Tobruk. I think we have 3 until Rommel gets here. Greece is something we're investing in majorly to try to serve as some sort of assistance to the USSR, which will be maintaining a front against Germany inevitably. We are now up to dealing with China. And we've had different amounts of success and otherwise with China. So, we have quite a situation here. So in the south, our offensives have been very delayed, very stalled. It's been really unfortunate. I hope to be a little more aggressive again now that we're recovering from a lot of what we've done. And make some more pushing. So in the north, we're not really going to push. We're just going to reinforce this army, which has taken some damage, but dealt damage because these armies keep trying to attack with the artillery. I'm saving the shells. Has been absolutely fantastic at dealing with the enemies, making them trade equal blows against inferior units, which is fan-fucking-tastic. In the north, just south of Pauto, we have completely split the rail line, so that's amazing. In the south, we've slowed down. In the center, it's been more quiet, mainly the Japanese going on offensives, which they really didn't do this turn, actually. So, we're going to go on some offensives, and these may be extremely dangerous, but who the hell knows? We're going to take the 3rd Corps, we're going to put them real into harm's way here. We're going to push them across the river next to Fuchao to further cut off the enemy corps here that we've been so desperately fighting against. Now that their zone of control is weakened due to them being so weak, we can actually cross the line right here with a corps. We haven't really been able to do this before. This really makes it hard for this corps to retreat and should help cut supply lines along this road. So that's good. We can then also, I'm not going to move this corps across here. I think that's just a bad idea. We're going to move this corps down here. It'll be able to participate with its elite units in the attack against the enemy corps. I guess we'll just go ahead and start that now. We'll attack with the, we'll attack with one of the worst units first, just to break the enemy entrenchments. Let's go ahead and attack. Alright, enemy entrenchment's broken. Now let's go ahead and... Ooh, elite reinforcements. Well, let's go ahead and attack with the 4th Corps now. No damage on either side, unfortunately. I hate how it's still working out like that. We'll go ahead and we'll get the elite reinforcements on this corps because hopefully if we keep stacking these up, that'll prove helpful in our push here. In addition, in the south here, we're going to take this corps, and now that this isn't as important of a route, we're going to move that into the mountains nearby, where it could maybe push across the river as well, or make it scarier for any armies coming down to try to strike the corps that has pushed across the river. That's my intention. There's a lot of elite reinforcements we could do on this front. We're going to ignore that for now and go to something a little more important, which is this northern pocket. So we want to break through these special forces, as I want to push south rather than north. Even though I believe there's a convoy right here. Yeah, that makes me second guess it, honestly. I don't know. What I really want to do is just kill the Japanese and push them out of China so they're not getting all the MPPs from all this place. And then we can make a fortified push, like concentrated through Manchuria into Korea. That's my idea. Let's go ahead and take the 12th Army. It's a little damaged. I'm actually going to get it off the front line, but the first thing I'm going to do is attack the enemy special forces over here at Sinan to weaken them. We've dealt 2 damage and lost none. That sounds great to me. We're going to go ahead and retreat the army back into fortifications where it'll be able to recover later. Now we want to push more forward. We don't have a lot of strong units that can actually push as far as I'd like to, but we are going to go ahead and be a little ballsy with this push. We're going to take the 2nd Corps and push way past the enemy lines here, and this is going to scare their frontline armies here, which are usually just swapping out and attacking our front line. They have fighters back here too that we could take advantage of their location being here. We have a 42nd Army that we can commit to either side, north or south. Killing these fighters, or at least scaring them off, could be fantastic. I'm going to focus on the south. So we're going to send the 42nd Army forward into contact with the enemy special forces here, and we are going to attack now that we're across the river. We've dealt 2 more damage, we've taken 2 damage. That's fine, considering we are the Chinese. Now, from there, we'll go ahead and we'll take the 23rd Army and attack as well. Amazingly, it was nothing. No damage taken or lost on either side. What the hell? I'll go ahead and cycle this corps northwest. I'll cycle the army northwest, so I can send this corps into their position. And it still shows that we're not really going to do very well here. And we're not even shooting across a river in this spot. Well, we do need to be persistent as the Chinese, so let's give it a shot. No damage on either side. It could have been worse. It could have been better. This corps still hasn't attacked either, but the corps don't look like they're going to do so well. The enemy supply here is down to 3. This unit is shaken. And it's likely to retreat sooner or later, but the last thing I want to do is fire across a river at it or weaken this corps that I've now pushed out into the danger zone. It will be harder to push anywhere else in the meanwhile, but this is where we can start taking advantage of these elite reinforcements to prepare something better. So we unfortunately cannot do it for this army because they're not in good enough of supply, I think. Actually, no, we just can't do it for any of these guys, despite their experience. And I'm not actually sure why. Do they need to be in 10? No way, because I'm giving reinforcements to some that definitely are not in 10. Maybe there's a limit to elite reinforcements I can assign in total? I'm not sure, but whatever the case is, we can't actually assign where I'd want to assign. We don't want to weaken the front. This enemy front here is losing steam. The Wuhan one's still strong as ever. We cannot get past it, nor can we hurt it, which is why I'm trying to make progress where I can and overwhelm them with sheer numbers. What I think I'll do is I'll move the L Corps forward here so it's in a position to help the push or replace if one of these corps dies or whatever in the next turn. We're going to take the Dare to Die Special Forces, move them north as well to assist this as we try to overwhelm. I didn't think we'd be overwhelming them from the north rather than the south, but broadening our front here could also allow us to maybe take on both sides at once. As of right now, we really can't do that. We don't need anybody sitting right here for any reason. We could do with moving up this HQ a little bit, though. It couldn't be harmed by moving up. Well, it could harmed, quote unquote. But it could be pretty good to actually move up. Not as aggressive a turn as I've wanted it to be, but our movements so far are working out pretty well. We have 165 MPPs as China remaining. I might as well look at doing some research with it. We'll go ahead and get some anti-air defense because China can't even do a lot of research at once to begin with. They can do the least out of everybody. And some anti-air defense could really help against the Japanese, certainly. So we might as well take this excess and put it into something that could help us in the long run as China, dealing with all the incessant air raids of the Japanese. We'll take the first fighters here as well, and we're going to want to move these forward. Although, okay, the town's producing only 2 supply. I was like, what's the supply like over here? I don't want to get into too bad of a situation of supply here, so the town itself may not be the best place to park any planes, so we'll put it right behind the town. I want to make sure the coverage that the fighter has is still pretty good, because this anti-air is going to be less useful now in this position, since they're not really trying to attack very hard here. So the defense has to move forward with the line where we have a push going. And then there's still Haikou we have to deal with somehow. I have artillery coming in January, but I am definitely very concerned about Haikou. At the very least, if Indochina actually does just fall to an event rather than get declared war on because I didn't know about Haikou, then at the very least, it would be very hard for the Japanese to maintain a front here, even if they do get free units, because the Chinese are just so numerous, and by that point, I should have a lot of success with my actual pushes in China proper. But that is it for this turn, so let's go ahead and hit end turn. Italian morale suffers from the loss of Tobruk. Okay. Nice. Very good. Engineers complete a fortress. Alright, cool. As well as in China. Good. Not that the Chinese ones really need it. Allied vessels blockade Brest. So this is a blockade. And that's dealing supply damage, which is going to reduce MPPs they have. Greek morale is boosted by the presence of British troops in Greece. Okay, so just moving a fighter over there counts. So we've now boosted the Greek morale, which is probably going to directly affect their units. India finally started moving Afghanistan towards the Allies. I wonder if that's going to lean towards India because they started it. I set that up in motion so long ago. Former Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain dies. Oh, that's sad. I didn't realize he died so soon after. Parisians clash with police during Armistice Day commemorations. UK develops command and control level 1, hot. USA develops long-range aircraft level 1, hot. The carriers are going to love that. Production technology development going up. USSR develops advanced tanks, hot. Advanced Fighters Development, done. USSR, hot. What is this? India, Command and Control progressing. Okay. Nice. UK sitting on a whole bunch more MPPs again. No raids getting in our way. That's handy. That Hanoi Kunming Railway still kicking ass for us. I love it. You gotta love it. The Italians... Oh, wait. They haven't moved yet. These are all just calculations and events. Alright. What do you got for me? What do you have for me? Yeah, that front line, the Greek morale is looking much better already. It's good that I did this. Let's see. They're reinforcing units at the front. They didn't reinforce. They actually just moved them first. So now they're going through and actually reinforcing their units. Enemy Italian submarine attacking our cruiser in port, doing no damage. Okay. Interesting. Japanese are attacking our core on the front here. They're probably not very entrenched. That's why they're focusing so heavily here. We took 5 damage. We dealt 2 to their armies. Not the best, really, but could be a lot worse. At least they're focusing that instead of something more important. They attacked the core first to lure out the artillery. Then they attacked again. Okay, our core in the front here is coming under enemy army attack. It's even hard to keep up sometimes, even at this speed. But that northern part went a lot better than the south, although the south isn't going to lose us anything. The Romanians and some Germans are moving up to the Romanian front here. This is going to fucking hurt when it starts. It's going to hurt like hell. Oh, it's going to hurt like hell. That's why I'm not even at the border. I know troops of ours are just going to get deployed there. I don't think any amount of stacking I do in the open fields are really going to help me. We have to make them feel the Russian winter. Destroyers for bases, HMS Castleton commissioned. Nice, so we got another destroyer. Allied vessels blockade Brest again. So each turn this happens. Okay, that's pretty fucking handy, actually. That could be pretty good for my submarines to do. I've discovered something good. Malta is hindering enemy supply in the Mediterranean. And then that's it. The Axis are pulling off a lot less than they've been pulling off recently, I've noticed. Medium bomber spotted near Vienna. I feel like that's getting ready for Yugoslavia. We have the formidable carrier we can deploy. Are there any limits to where we can deploy that? Can we deploy that out here if we wanted? No, we cannot. It has to be at the UK proper. Oh, well, that's sad. Let's deploy it somewhere safe then. Over here by the Isle of Man. It's already pretty much fully upgraded with everything, and the Russians can get a destroyer. Whatever that's worth. It can go south and north. Neither of these options is really good, but I guess in the north, it's less likely to die. Maybe? I don't know. We'll put it over... Well, actually, yeah, I really don't know. Because if you lose all this and you lose the ports, you can also put it here, which is a terrible idea. Why would you even need a ship over here? Can you put it in the east? You can also put it in the east, but the Russian Navy won't really be engaging the Japanese one. We'll put it over by where the Germans would be. We'll put it in the safety of Leningrad's port. Okay, so Afghanistan just started moving to the UK. So yeah, you don't even really get to determine what direction a country leans. So how you allocate chits can really just be done in support of another country. India did not have to put anything into Afghanistan. It could just as easily have invested in communist China or something else that would be helpful, more helpful than Afghanistan, because I can't actually decide what major a minor goes to. Good to know. I did not know that. Well, that's 100 MPPs, probably down the drain to be honest, but lessons learned, hard lessons learned. At least we learned them. I've run into a hitch in my plan here to send a corps up to Greece. I cannot actually transport from this port. I don't really know why. Maybe it has something to do with supply. Maybe you just can't transport from occupied ports. I have no idea. And the game is not telling me why I can't. It's just telling me that I can't. So I guess all these guys are just staying down here, because moving them back would just take so long, it's just not worth it. Supply over here is not looking that hot at the moment. Tobruk and the port are hardly providing any supply. Getting the HQ in Tobruk may help with supply movement in the area. I don't really know exactly how this is going to work. All I know is this is not going to work out at all like I was hoping it was going to work out. So what we'll do for the time being is we'll take the 7th Armored Tanks and we'll just move them forward into the desert We're going to take the WDF army, which cannot do any reinforcing right now. We're going to push that up as well. It should still be till February before Rommel arrives. So let's go ahead and take our recon and go spot what's ahead. There's only enemy garrisons ahead, which shouldn't be that problematic to deal with, at least in theory. So we're going to try to deal with it. It could also be the supply spread from the HQ just not being as good because we're not on a road with it. So there's also that as a possibility. I don't expect a garrison to come try to engage me. We're going to go down the road some more with the Desert Recon just so it can function, you know, as a recon. And we're going to have to move some other stuff up here. So this corps is going to move further down the road. Not all the way up. We're not going to lure out a garrison. I just want to get it out of the way. The HQ itself is going to march on Tobruk. The artillery cannot move up that far, so it'll just move up as far as it can. This is going to be interesting. We got to get the special forces moving as well. Supply is just not too great anywhere over here. We'll just move it in like this. We'll move the tactical bombers up behind the HQ for the time being so they can try to get in range of Benghazi and stuff. Hurting the Italian national morale more could be good. Right now it's down to 96. I believe it was at 101% before. UK's at 94%, so they could definitely use any wins they can get. I guess holding here could work. And what we'll do is we'll just pour more points from the UK, hitting all the wrong buttons, into Greece by just purchasing all the cores they can have here and maybe even the fighters. That might be a waste. Cores come first. We have British fighters here that are going to serve that function for the time being, and there's just what I'm going to leave here because it's going to be too hard to get any more British units over here. I guess like something I could do is buy an Egyptian garrison and then move that over there, and that might count as British. I don't even know if that would count as British is the problem. It's a British minor, but it sure isn't British. But before we start doing any of that, let's look at what we have to deal with. We're going to reinforce the Sudan Defense Force Corps here, which is not seeing a lot of success by itself. Sadly, we can't just operate it to the other guys, but the other guys will go ahead and begin their attacks. Very low morale, very low readiness. It's very disappointing. We will attack. We unfortunately dealt no damage, but we also took no damage. Let's attack again. And same result. At the very least, these guys are building up experience, which should eventually make them good enough to actually win. The garrison would theoretically be building up XP as well, but as long as the garrison is losing more than we're losing, you know, hopefully something good happens here. By the way, for the USSR, there's not really a lot we can do here. We have 144 MPPs. That's just barely not enough to research a lot of stuff that would be handy. I could research aerial warfare, but as of right now, it doesn't look like we're going to have a whole lot of planes. Like, we have one plane here. We could give it advanced fighters. Okay, that's something. That's pretty important, even if it is just for one fighter group. Oh, look, that actually changes the model. That's funny. They have, like, little pea shooters, and then it advances. Yeah, let's go ahead and give that advanced fighters. But there's not a lot we can do otherwise. Looking at the British mainland, we have some ships to deal with. So we're going to reinforce the Montgomery destroyer. Get that up to snuff. Same thing with the Jersey destroyer. We have the Triumphant sitting here, waiting upgrades. We'll give it what we can give it for the time being. That's 20 more MPPs. We don't know of anything that's actually here. We don't know of any subs or anything. So we're going to do a little patrol. We're going to sail the Canadian destroyer just up the line here. Absolutely nothing discovered, which is an absolute win. We do have the Castleton destroyer here, but we don't have enough safe, quote-unquote, ports back here to deal with it. That's fine. We're going to reinforce the Bulldog destroyer. The Bulldog destroyer will now be ready for upgrades. The Castleton will probably wait down by the Bulldog. The Canadian one's going to go up here somewhere. In the meantime, patrols must continue. We'll take the Mohawk destroyer. We'll send it down closer to Canada. We'll take the Javelin destroyer. We'll send it closer to the center, just so we have destroyers in reach for whenever this is raided. They love raiding that, and that's actually a very profitable one to raid. If they come over here, we'll have to start dealing with that eventually. The only submarine I know of over here we sank last turn with our carriers, who we're going to set back into fighter mode now that we can do that. And we did also learn that the salmon sub here could just go ahead and blockade enemy ports, which actually hurts the amount of supply they provide. I don't know about MPP value, but it hurts the amount of supply, which could be helpful. Theoretically, less supply means potentially less MPPs being generated. We're going to take the Parthian sub here and sail it over to Malta, where it can sit in port and just chill out as we continue to try to cycle it over to the rest of the British fleet, where hopefully it can do something similar on the French west coast here. The Amazon destroyer is also probably due for some upgrades, so we're going to get it back here into the safety where we can free up a port for it later, as well as we're going to cycle the carriers back a little bit to make our front lines a little more front-liney. That's a way to word it. And there you go. Leaving light cruisers on the front rather than heavy ones, just in case a submarine shows up for whatever reason. We have 268 MPPs remaining as the Brits. I'm still going to heavily be prioritizing Greece. So we're going to go into Greece, and we are going to purchase their second core now. It's 150 MPPs. We have 118 remaining. So the Athens core is almost to the town where I want them to entrench. They are now there. They can start entrenching. Prioritizing the town as it's a source of supply. Maybe I should move up further, but I don't want to lure the Italians out, because they didn't come out. They stayed there. Despite starting a war, bringing Greece in, they stayed there and didn't do anything. So let's go ahead. We can get this HQ all the way up to 10, which is fantastic for the future supply and etc. of everything on the front. With the other cores, we may want to fill in the mountains and just hold there rather than these back lines. But until we get more cores pouring in, I really don't know if that's how I want to do it. I also don't know that I want this HQ up here at where it's currently located instead of, you know, back at Larissa, somewhere that's safer. This is a very dangerous location, if you ask me. This fort, this is part of the Metaxas line. This needs to be filled as well. Ideally, I could have operated the Athens core up there, but I didn't want the Italians just spilling in through here as well. We only really need this for when the Germans show up. Ideally, theoretically. Because as of right now, the only one at war with Greece is Italy. When the Germans get involved, they can come in through Bulgaria, and so this could be pretty important. The garrison could go there. But a core would be better. Something to just hold the front. We cannot currently reinforce the Epirus army, but we can go ahead and give it anti-air defense, which, when the Germans get here, will be very important for all the units down here. I again don't want to go ahead and start spending a whole bunch of money reinforcing a heavy cruiser that's probably just going to die when Greece eventually dies. However, our fighter group looks like they can get a successful strafe off on these enemies, so we're going to go ahead and try and strafe them. Submarine dives from attack, took 1 damage. Our fighters took none. Our attack bombers are not in range, and I don't want them to be in range. I want them to be in range of Benghazi and such, so we can hopefully take out some of the enemy supply here, get some supply for ourselves. We have extra time. We have 2 more months till Rommel arrives, and I don't know where he's going to arrive, but it's probably going to be somewhere around here. Wiping out a garrison shouldn't be too hard, and hurting the Italian morale can only be good for us. For the Indians, we're not going to do much with their points. We're going to save, but other than save, we're going to reassign their 1 chit that they now have. Afghanistan is not that important. I don't know if I can take chits out and get all my money back. I don't know if that's a thing. I'm going to assume I would not get the money back, so I'll leave this in Afghanistan. And so that gives me some choices of where to assign the current chit, and I do want to assign it. So, Communist China comes to mind. Certainly would be good help for China. But I feel like Japan's just getting their asses beat so much. Who's really going to need the help? The UK, or maybe the Soviets. I don't know that Mongolia is good for much now. But they're already at 75%. The USSR can't actually start moving anybody at the moment because they're not in the war yet. But I could maybe assign them some help in getting it moving towards them to start with. So I'll go ahead and I'll put the Indian shit into Mongolia, because theoretically, at the end of the day, that would become more MPPs for the USSR, and maybe even more units. Maybe not very good ones, but maybe more. And so that could be neat. I really don't know what I'm doing with these. This is a learning playthrough, as I said. Leaving the USSR with the chits, or points that it has, 119. And now we can look at America. America has more research it can do. It finished some up. I think I'm going to go ahead and spend most of America's points here on getting advanced fighters level 2. Because, think about it, the American focus that I'm going to go for is the Navy. So we need the Navy to respond to anything the Japanese do, and especially to defeat their cover and their air over the Pacific with their carriers. So this could be especially handy. So could long-range aircraft, but I can only afford 1 right now. So I'm going to go back into advanced fighters, getting close to that max research funding, but Some things are bound to finish sooner or later. Still at 38%, unfortunately not 40%. I sure fucking wish they were at 40%, then they could start providing Lend-Lease, but I think in real life that didn't even start until later in 1941 anyway. So fortunately, we're not at any historical debuff. Now, we still have a little bit of time, so that brings us to China. We have a rather stressed front line here, but as we can see, the readiness of the Japanese up here is actually starting to falter. One quite interesting thing is going to be that Hong Kong at this rate is just like never going to fall unless the Japanese amphibiously invade it, because they can't just march down like they did in real life. We're still kind of stuck with Haikou. There's not much we can do there, unfortunately. Like, we need an army here at the very least. We don't have that. But we can make some progress here. I can actually do some guaranteed damage. They didn't really attack us for the progress we made down here, which is quite interesting. So we're going to go ahead and attack this enemy core. We dealt 2 damage and took none. That is fantastic. Let's now swap out with this other unit that has elite reinforcements and attack. No damage dealt, unfortunately, there. Let's go ahead and attack with the 5th Corps. We only took damage, highly unfortunate. Swap them out and take the 1st Corps, which has 1 elite reinforcement and attack. We have dealt 1 damage, lost none. They're gaining XP, but so are we. We could just go and attack the garrison as well with this unit that's up on the front, or we could continue to attack the enemy core here. We can do more damage to the garrison, so I will go ahead and just attack the garrison. We did 3 damage and we took none. That is fantastic, because then if we can fully surround them, then they're as good as dead, and we can have our southern breakthrough after all, because they clearly don't have enough troops to maintain all these fronts. Now, looking at the northern front, the 42nd Army is in a good place to attack the enemy special forces. Let's go ahead and attack immediately. We dealt 1 damage, not the 2 we were promised. We took 1, even though we were promised to take none. For their own safety, we'll take the 42nd Army, we'll move them up to Xing Yuan, where they'll be able to recover. The 12th Army is going to recover with what MPPs we have to assign to them. This is where the special forces can really come in handy. We're going to move them up with their elite units and all, attack the enemy special forces, only dealing 1 damage and losing our elite reinforcement. God damn. It's really not going as well as I'm ever hoping it would. However, the push here is not done. We're going to take this core and we're going to further commit it, pushing around and completely... They don't have anything on Tsingtao. There's no partisans there. But that means we can go step on that soon. And there's not much they can do about it. We can take the L core here and now move it forward where they can get to the rear of the enemy special forces. Attack. The special forces is pretty much going to die from supply at this rate. Well, maybe. It's on a town that can produce supplies, so that's not guaranteed. We'll take this next core and attack, dealing another damage, taking none. And let's take the next core nearby. No damage dealt, unfortunately. We can, however, swap in the 23rd Army and go ahead and attack with that, dealing no damage despite the fact that it said we would deal damage, so that's a little annoying. Well, the core in the rear can get an attack in. It's probably not the smartest thing, but it's not the worst thing. We have very little else capable of actually making any movements here. We are going to reinforce this core that's up on this front, not really in any real danger. We'll go ahead and move this core down a notch and take this one from up north, send it down and attack. 1 damage dealt. Oh man, 1 damage received. These special forces are really giving me a fight. We'll go ahead and attack with the core in the rear, and voila, we have finished them off, but taking 1 damage in the process. Wonderful. We want to continue the offensive. We have very good things happening in the north and south. We're breaking through on both sides, so we can potentially completely encapsulate the enemy Japanese front line. So we're going to take this core and actually move it to take this village. Hopefully it'll start producing some good supply for us. The problem is my offensive is getting further and further away from HQs that could support it. We're going to need to start moving HQs in position to support it. So the engineer's probably just going to stay here and serve as a defensive force, because we're going to move the Zoo HQ further, much further up north now, as you can see, to try to provide some support over here to our front line, because this defensive line here is mattering less now. This core down the center is certainly in a predicament. We'll go ahead and reinforce that up to full strength. It's only 35 MPPs, and at least it's serving as a good distraction for these armies and kind of keeping them here, because it's like easy target. Maybe it's baiting them into attacking. I don't really know. We also need to go ahead and reinforce this army. We could attack with it and get some good results. The problem is we got to remember there's another army here that might be doing better, that could swap in and hurt us at any point. So we're still going to play defensively up here. This is a front line, and we're just trying to lure them into attacking us with the support of the artillery, ideally. We have exactly 150 MPPs remaining with the Chinese, and there's a couple things I could do with it, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and I'm gonna actually reform the first army that we lost earlier. They'll arrive in February, which is not so bad. That may be close enough to assist in the south with taking Haikou. It may not be. But I'm going to go ahead and get that rolling. I forget when Haikou's supposed to trigger a annexation of Indochina. It's either like March, which if it is March, it will get there too late, or June. If it's June, it might have enough time to contribute to this front, because this is where I will send it, that first army, when it gets back. I'm hoping to God that it's like June or July and not March. March would just be way too early. But I'm going to do whatever I can to take Haikou and prevent Indochina from falling. If it falls, too bad, so sad, you know, the usual thing. We'll deal with it. We'll just send some Chinese units to liberate it. And with that, we have our turn in its entirety completed. We are out of time, so next turn is when we'll hit end turn. I'm quite happy with how things are going in China and over here in Africa and Greece so far, because the Italians are proving to be so passive. Let me know how you think things are going. Do you think we're properly prepared in the USSR? Do you think we're going to hold Greece and actually successfully distract the Germans? How do you think Africa's going to go once Rommel arrives? Because we're having, well, mixed results here. We're succeeding early, but with some casualties. Battle of the Atlantic's going well, and I definitely want to hear your thoughts on China. But for now, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.